Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. The job sounded simple. A night watch in a basement that was never really just a basement. The cathedral sat heavy over downtown like a stone lung. It breathed tourists by day. It held its breath at night. That's when I went in. Brother Abel met me at the side door at 11:42 p.m. He wore a smile that looked practiced. His hands were inked with old candle burns. He took my phone, sealed it in a velvet pouch, and locked it in a brass box with a key the size of a toothbrush. "For reverence," he said. The word tasted like dust in the hallway. We moved past stained glass that had seen wars end and marriages begin. The nave groaned like a ship. Organs, wood, stone, heartbeats. It all added up to a pressure you could feel in your ears. Abel opened a door that didn't match the wall, new steel and old brick. It hissed open. Stairs fell away into cold. It smelled like incense and freezers. Clean and ancient at once. A dehumidifier hummed water beaded on pipes and ran like sweat. We walked past a sign that said property of St. Rigor Mortis in Sharpie. Someone thought they were funny. 3 rules, Abel said. He didn't dramatize it. No printed card. No spooky pause. He just said them like he was telling me where the fire exits were. Never step beyond the red line. The chanting you hear, don't answer it. If you see your own shadow move, pray. Pray, I repeated. As if your life depends on it, he said. Because it will. We reached the vault level. Concrete floor, brick arches, LED strips nailed to ribs of stone. A hallway ran like a track around a square room with a window inside the window. Stainless steel cabinets, plasma freezers, coolers with labels in Latin and English, cathedral charities, disaster relief partners, a plaque, Holy Plasma Trust, EST, 1891. Someone had carved a tiny halo over the word plasma. The red line ran like a boundary around the inner room. It was not tape. It wasn't paint either. It had a thickness, like a vein lightly raised under skin. It glowed when you didn't look straight at it. Don't ask me how that's possible. It just did. Abel showed me the station. 1 monitor on a rolling stand. 4 camera feeds. Hall. Freezer room stairs. The old reliquary. The last camera held on a glass cabinet packed with bones labeled like library books. Saints you never hear about. One of them had a femur wrapped in silk. If bones could stare, those did. Rounds every hour, Abel said. No weapons. If you feel you need one, you should already be out the door. What's the red line for? I asked. He didn't answer right away. You are hired to observe and report. The line is there so you live long enough to do both. He gave me a key ring and an old-fashioned time punch with paper cards. The clock's tick was louder than the hum of the freezers. You'll hear things, he said. They'll sound like they need you. They don't. Who's they? Don't dignify them with a name, he said. Names make doors. Abel left with the same calm he came with. The steel door shut. The air got heavier by a degree or two. Midnight rolled in without asking permission. The cathedral settled. Pigeons in the rafters above ground. Pipes cooling. The city went quiet in small clicks. I took my first round. I stayed inside the loop like a cautious runner. The red line to my left, humming. The freezers behind the glass to my right, whispering frost through their gaskets. A slot in the wall held a prayer book. Each page had oily thumbprints. I caught myself counting them. I stopped. The reliquary smelled sweet and wrong, like flowers left too long in a vase. The camera above it tilted a degree on its own. I watched it in the monitor later. No mechanical noise, just a choice. I logged it. 12:18 a.m. Camera 4 drifted 1 notch left. No external cause. My handwriting looked steadier than I felt. At 12:39, the chanting began. It reached you the way fog does. You noticed it, and then realized it had been there for a while. Male voices. Patient. The way water is patient. A phrase rose and fell like a slow tide. Not Latin, not English. A cradle song for something with too many teeth. My throat prepared hello on reflex. Old habit from security work in hospitals. Check the disturbance. Make yourself known. That single syllable gathered in my mouth like a coin on my tongue. I swallowed it. Rule 2. Don't answer. I held my breath until my chest hurt. When I exhaled, the chant slipped back a step, as if I'd passed a test I didn't know I was taking. The monitor showed nothing. The audio feed was dead, by design. The speakers were unplugged. Smart choice. You can't play back what you refuse to record. At 1:04, the lights dimmed and then returned. The freezers cycled. I logged it. I took the second round and counted my steps to keep my mind from leaning over the edge. The red line pulsed. It felt interested. On the third pass, I saw movement in the glass of the freezer room. It was my reflection. It lifted its hand a half-second late, like a stream buffering. Then it lined up with me. I laughed once, thin and dry. Too much coffee, I said aloud. The chant swelled in the ceiling as if pleased. I stepped toward the glass. The line at my feet hummed louder. My reflection frowned a moment after I did. Then it blinked wrong. The lids closed from the bottom up. I didn't blink. It did. My mouth went colder than the room. I backed away to the station. The chair was warm, like someone had just been sitting in it. I put my hand on the seat and felt the warmth in my palm. Not imagined. Not a trick of nerves. Heat. The bulletin board above the monitor held a small, metal crucifix on a pushpin. It was turned upside down. I turned it back. It trembled against the cork like it wanted to argue. At 1:30, something rolled softly in the hall behind me. I spun. A janitor's cart at the far end. I hadn't seen it before. Metal frame. 2 buckets. One mop stood like a flagpole stuck in the back. The mop head was clean and white. The handle had tape on the grip. Black marker next to it said, M. P. I told myself, maintenance had left it. I told myself lots of comforting things that didn't make sense. The cart tapped once against the wall. Then it stopped. The handle tilted as if settling. I blinked too long, and when I opened my eyes, the mop head faced toward the red line. It looked ready. I laughed again, softer. Sure, the mop's on my side. You joke when you're scared because silence breeds worse. The chant returned like tide pulling at your ankles. The red line brightened. A pressure pushed at my ears. I felt the exact shape of the boundary without looking down. It was a circle and a promise. I stayed inside it. Something touched the glass inside the freezer room. A fingertip dragged across it. Then another. Then a hand. It left no fog, only a line like the inside of the glass had remembered warmth. The hand made a slow circle, a hello without words. I did not wave back. The lights dimmed. The cameras fluttered. For a second, the reliquary cabinet showed more bones than it had a moment before. The silk-wrapped femur stacked on 2 new ribs that hadn't been there. The feed corrected itself. The extra ribs were gone. I wrote nothing. Not because I wanted to forget, but because naming makes doors. The whispering chant slid into my ear like a knife that had learned manners. It spoke my name in a way my mother never had. I kept my mouth shut. Rule 2. Obedience is underrated. At 2 a.m., the power flickered hard. The emergency lights kicked in, pink and thin. The red line burned like a fresh wound. In the reflection, my shadow yawned. I didn't. It turned its head toward me. I watched its throat move like it swallowed. My knees went soft. I did exactly what the third rule suggested. I prayed. No poetry. No flourish. Just a focus the size of a nail driven through thought. The chant paused. The emergency light steadied. The red line cooled to a dull throb. My shadow stared straight ahead again, dumb as a shadow should be. I sat. The chair felt cold now. A small mercy. The janitor's cart no longer faced the line. The mop leaned as if listening. The clock ticked. I wrote one sentence in the log to keep my hand honest. 2:03 a.m., all systems nominal. It wasn't true, but it wasn't a lie either. Sometimes survival is the space between those two. I took a breath that reached the bottom of my lungs. The cathedral above us shifted, wood and stone and history grinding in slow patience. I realized we were all inside a throat, and it was learning the taste of me. At 3 a.m., the cathedral above me groaned like a ship grinding against the tide. I'd made 3 laps around the vault, each one slower than the last. Fear changes your stride, turns you from a guard into prey on patrol. The hum from the red line had become something else. A low vibration that crawled under my skin. My molars buzzed with it. You could feel it in the soft tissue of your chest, right behind the heartbeat. I leaned against the wall to steady myself, and that's when I saw the writing, faint etchings in the brick. Names. Dozens of them. Some carved shallow, others gouged deep. A few were crossed out with a single slash, like someone had taken attendance and started deleting the roll call. One of them stopped me cold. Marcus Dale. That was my name. It looked old. Not last week old. Century old. The grooves had filled with dust, and the same fine white powder that lined the reliquary floor. I touched the letters. The wall pulsed once under my fingers, like something on the other side was breathing in sync with me. Brother Abel didn't mention this, I muttered. The sound of my own voice didn't belong here. It was like dropping a stone in a well that never echoed back. Then I heard it again, the chanting. Only this time it wasn't distant. It was behind me. Low, rhythmic, precise. Not loud enough to echo, just loud enough to exist. I turned. The corridor was empty. The red line flickered faintly. The mop on the janitor cart had turned again, its handle now leaning toward the reliquary door. That mop hadn't moved when I wasn't looking. It moved when I blinked. I walked closer. My boots whispered against the cold floor. The closer I got, the more I saw it. The letters MP on the handle weren't marker after all. They were engraved deep and clean, like initials chiseled into a weapon. And something about the handle's balance, the way it rested against the bucket, didn't read like janitorial equipment. It read like a soldier waiting for orders. "You and me both, buddy," I whispered. The reliquary's door creaked open half an inch. Not enough to see inside, just enough to invite. A smell drifted out. Copper, wax, and rain. It hit the back of my throat like memory. The chanting grew louder, circling the edges of the room like invisible water lapping a drain. It was saying something I understood this time. It was my name. Over and over. Each syllable drawn out, syllables fraying into whispers that didn't want to end. Marcus. Dal. Marcus. My breath clouded the air. I looked down. The red line now pulsed like a heartbeat. My heartbeat. I stepped closer to the reliquary door, the mop cart beside me. Its shadow stretched longer than it should have, bent around corners that didn't exist. The chant stopped. Silence filled the void like water rushing into a submarine. Then, from the darkness inside the reliquary, came a whisper that wasn't a voice. It was the sound of something smiling with lungs full of dust. "You've done this before." My knees nearly gave. "What?" "You prayed well. Last time." Every instinct told me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The stairs were 50 feet behind me. Between me and them was the red line. I looked down. The line had split open. Just a crack. Enough to see something red pulsing beneath it, As if the cathedral itself had veins, I backed up slowly. The freezers rattled in unison, metal doors bowing inward like something inside them was trying to get out. One burst open with a sharp hiss of vapor. Blood packs slid out onto the floor, bursting like veins under pressure. Red puddles spread, slow and thick. The smell hit next. Iron, salt, something ancient. And beneath that sound of dripping, another joined in. Soft footsteps, bare feet slapping cold stone. I froze. A shadow crossed the glass window between me and the freezers. Human shape, but too tall, too narrow. Its head tilted at an angle bones shouldn't allow. It stopped at the window, pressed a hand to the glass long fingers, nails like wet ivory. Then it tapped. Once, twice, thrice. Each knock echoed behind my ribs. I grabbed the mop handle without thinking. It was warm. Not room temperature warm. Alive warm. The second my hand wrapped around it, the red line pulsed harder. The chanting cut off like a record scratch. Whatever was behind the glass hissed, a sound that boiled, with anger and hunger both. I stepped back toward the line, the mop in hand like a pike. The thing behind the glass moved fast. A blur. The lights dimmed to a candle flicker. Then, slam. Its face pressed against the window, mouth gaping in a wordless scream that never came. Eyes black and wet like oil. Skin pale as moonlight soaked in milk. A vampire, or what used to be one. The glass didn't break. The red line didn't let it. But the creature's shadow reached over it, stretching across the floor toward me, slithering like smoke. I swung the mop instinctively. The second the bristles crossed the red line, they glowed, a clean, blinding white. The shadow shrieked, not the creature, the shadow itself. It snapped back like a burned animal. The mop hummed in my hands. I could feel it vibrating, angry, alive, divine. Then it stilled. The lights came back. The window cleared. The freezer room was empty again. The blood on the floor gone. The reliquary door closed. The mop handle cooled in my grip. Heavy as stone, I set it gently against the wall. A faint whisper brushed my ear as I stepped back. Good form. The clock on the monitor read 3:33 a.m., half the night left to survive. And I had just learned the first truth of this job. The blood down here wasn't stored. It was fed. By 4 a.m., the vault had gone quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means listening. I sat at the station with the mop leaning beside me like a sentry. The cameras rolled grainy black and white footage, the edges breathing static. Every once in a while a shape fluttered across the corner of the reliquary feed, like dust caught in the air, except it moved against the draft. My logbook said, 4:02, no activity. 4:10, no chanting. 4:18, something pretending to be calm. Brother Abel hadn't told me that fear could start to sound holy, that the mind would try to sanctify what it couldn't fight. The red line had dimmed, but it still throbbed faintly. Like a heartbeat muffled under floorboards, I found myself wondering whose pulse it was. Mine? The creature's? Or something older that never stopped counting? A soft clink pulled me from the thought. One of the coolers had unlatched itself. The metal handle trembled. The latch clicked open and shut. Open, shut, like a nervous tick. Then the power blinked again. The backup lights hummed to life, bathing the hallway in a sickly rose hue. The walls looked like muscle tissue. And then I smelled it. Blood warming, I checked the temperature readouts. All the coolers read 0 degrees, but the air itself felt warmer, thicker, like someone had exhaled through a mouthful of rust. When I turned, the mop wasn't where I'd left it. It was standing upright, bristles resting neatly on the red line. Not beyond it, just touching a challenge, a promise. For reasons I can't explain, that gave me comfort. Like it knew the rules, too. Then came the footsteps again. Not human this time, too wet, too deliberate. Something dragging behind each step. The sound came from the stairs. I watched the feed. The stairwell camera showed nothing, but the mic picked up faint scraping, the kind of noise metal makes when it's remembering war. I turned up the gain. Through the static, a voice slipped through. Abel said you would come. It was a woman's voice. Soft. Kind. The kind of voice that makes you want to turn your head toward it, no matter how much your instincts beg you not to. Who are you? I whispered before realizing I'd broken rule 2. The air shifted. The red line flared white, burning against my eyes. The freezers trembled violently. I heard the unmistakable sound of teeth clacking from somewhere in the dark. Who are you? The voice repeated. But this time it was mine. I clamped my mouth shut. My voice echoed again, mocking me from every direction. Each repetition cracked a little, stretched thinner, until it became a whisper that wasn't words anymore. Just breath. The reliquary door swung open inside. Dozens of small votive candles flickered to life one by one, without matches, without reason. They circled a pedestal in the center of the room. Upon it, a glass case. And inside that case, a heart. Human, shriveled, still pulsing. A sign beneath it read Sanctum Cordis, Vitae Perpetua, the eternal heart. I approached the glass. Every instinct screamed no. But curiosity has gravity, and mine had pulled me into worse places before. The heart twitched once, hard enough to rattle its casing. Then again. Then again. Each beat synced with the red line's pulse. When I leaned in, the heart exhaled. A cloud of frost fogged the inside of the glass, forming words that melted almost as quickly as they came. Let it feed. The glass cracked. I jumped back. The light cut out. Darkness swarmed like liquid. Behind me, the mop handle snapped upright, bristles igniting in white fire that didn't burn. It cleansed. A hiss followed. Not air, not steam. Something alive. From the cracked glass, a stream of blood spilled out, thin at first, then widening, rising. It didn't spread on the floor. It slithered upward, forming a shape, a body. Pale limbs twisted into being, bones clicking like wind chimes. A head rolled up from the red liquid, eyes opening where there hadn't been sockets a moment before. The thing grinned. Its teeth looked like communion wafers gone sharp. Marcus, it rasped. You kept me waiting. I stumbled backward. What are you? The first one to pray, it said. The candles all blew out one by one. The light from the mop's burning head was the only glow left. Then the thing stepped past the red line. The light around it shattered. The world shrieked. And yet, it couldn't reach me. The mop had drawn a second circle in the dust, white and hot, sealing me in a halo of safety. The creature hissed. Its skin boiled where the mop's glow touched the air. It fell back, howling like the sound of broken organs. Then, as suddenly as it came, the blood collapsed. The heart shriveled in its case. The candles relit, trembling like they'd just seen hell. The mop's fire dimmed. Its bristles smoked but didn't burn. I set it gently down again. The initials MP glowed faintly, gold under the soot. When the hum died, I heard a faint sound from the stairwell, metal against stone, someone descending. I aimed the flashlight and waited. Brother Abel appeared in the doorway, robes swaying like shadows stitched to him. Marcus, he said, voice calm but his face pale. You saw it? I did. He looked at the mop, then at the circle burned into the floor. It woke too soon, he whispered. The blood remembers hunger. He handed me a small, leather-bound book. Write down what you saw. If you forget, it'll feed on that. I took the book. Its cover was cold, slick. The pages smelled like iron. What's it feeding on? I asked. Abel's eyes flicked to the reliquary, then back to me. Regret, he said. The candles flickered once more, and somewhere beneath our feet the heart began to beat again. By 4:47 a.m., the vault was breathing again. The air didn't move. It inhaled. The hum from the red line pulsed slow and steady, and the freezers exhaled a thin mist like lungs caught between prayers. Brother Abel stayed a few paces from the line, as if it were a shoreline for something vast beneath us. He looked tired. His robe was streaked with dark fingerprints that weren't his. The heart doesn't sleep, he said softly. It only waits. I glanced at the monitor. The reliquary camera was static. Endless snow, no image. I asked what it was showing me. Abel said, "That's not interference. That's mercy." The mop leaned beside me again, still upright, still faintly smoking from the earlier blaze. Abel stared at it too long, then looked away. "You shouldn't have that," he said. "It saved me." He nodded once. "Yes, that's the problem." The way he said it felt like a confession. He told me the mop wasn't ordinary. Of course it wasn't. Said it was a relic, a remnant of something used in the first cleansing. Centuries ago, the monks called it the warden's staff. Said it had been reforged dozens of times, oak, ash, even aluminum once, but the spirit inside never left. It moved between forms like breath between prayers. The initials MP weren't a name, but a vow. Munda purgo, Latin for I clean the unclean. He smiled sadly. The tool chooses its bearer when the blood wakes. Lucky me. The red line brightened again. A ripple of vibration crawled through the floor, up my spine. It wasn't sound. It was memory. I saw flashes behind my eyes. Old stone walls, men in robes carving lines into the floor with blades dipped in their own blood, the same red glow, the same hum, and my name, Marcus Dale, carved into the wall even then. "Why's my name down here, Abel?" He didn't answer. His eyes looked centuries deep. "Because some prayers echo," he said, "even after the lips that spoke them are gone." The lights flickered. The reliquary door swung open by itself. I raised the mop. Abel didn't move. "The heart wants to feed," he said. "If we don't give it something, it will take everything." I looked at him. "You knew this would happen tonight." He nodded. "It happens every few decades. The blood hungers. We give it what it asks for." "What does it ask for?" "Faith," he said quietly. "The kind that bleeds." Before I could reply, the chanting began again. Louder, nearer, richer. It filled the vault like a rising tide. The air thickened with it. Words that weren't words. Names that weren't mine. Until they were. The heart's glass case exploded. Shards rained against the far wall, slicing through air like silver shrapnel. The red line blazed, flickering in rhythm with the heartbeat. The freezers popped open one by one. Bags of blood burst. It painted the ceiling in thin red rain. Then, all at once, the blood gathered midair. Gravity forgot its job. It swirled in a column, human-shaped, twisting, unfinished. The outline of a face struggled to form, always changing male, female, child, elder, then me. My own face stared back, smiling with teeth that weren't mine. Abel began to pray in Latin, fast, desperate. His voice cracked, his throat raw. The blood being laughed. The sound hit like thunder underwater. I took a step closer, the mop glowing faintly in my hands. The air around it shimmered. I didn't know if it was courage or stupidity that pushed me forward, but something in me, maybe something older, recognized this fight. The mop head flared white again, holy fire licking the bristles. It vibrated like a living thing, impatient. I raised it and drew a clean arc through the air. The light cut across the blood figure, searing through it like daylight through fog. It screamed, not in pain, but in recognition. "Still trying to clean up your mess, Marcus?" It hissed in my voice. I froze. "What did you say?" "You made the first pact," it said, dissolving and reforming with every syllable. "You were the guard then, too. You prayed for protection, and the heart listened. It used your name to stay alive." Abel shouted over it, "Don't listen." But the truth had already sunk its claws in. "I've been down here before," I whispered. The creature smiled wider, lips stretching too far. "Every lifetime you return. Every lifetime you keep it alive." The red line split again. Veins of light crawling outward. Abel dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. "It's feeding," he choked. "You need to finish it." How? He pointed at the mop. Cleanse the blood, all of it. I swung again, this time hard. The mop struck the ground, and a wave of white light poured outward, vaporizing every drop it touched. The air filled with a hiss like snow melting on fire. The heart screamed, not from the glass, from the walls themselves, from everywhere. Abel shouted something in Latin and the ceiling cracked. Dust rained down. Stone split open in a cruciform pattern. I could see crimson light bleeding through the fractures, pulsing like a second heartbeat beneath the earth. The blood figure collapsed inward, folding into itself, shrinking until only a small drop remained on the floor, bright, glowing, defiant. I raised the mop above it. The drop pulsed once, then whispered something only I could hear. "See you next shift." I struck. The mop came down like judgment. Silence followed, sharp and absolute. The red line dimmed back to its faint hum. The air cleared. Abel gasped, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. "You did it," he breathed. I looked around. The floor was clean. Too clean. Not even the smell of blood remained. The mop cooled in my hands. The initials MP burned faintly, then faded. Abel stood. "You've bought us another century." I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said. "But for who?" He didn't answer. The clock on the monitor ticked 4:59 a.m., and from the stairwell above came the sound of church bells. Morning. The kind that sounded less like salvation and more like warning. The first bell struck 5. The sound didn't echo down. It sank. It trembled through the concrete and into my chest like a buried heartbeat answering its twin brother. Abel's hands shook as he lit what was left of a candle. The wick struggled. The flame shivered in the air like it wanted out. The red line had stopped pulsing, but the floor still felt warm beneath my boots. Not from heat, from life. I asked the only question that mattered. "Is it over?" Abel gave a smile that meant he wished it was. "It's quieter," he said. "That's the best we ever get." The reliquary's lights flickered, weak and uneven. The heart was gone, or hiding. I didn't ask which. We walked toward the stairs. I wanted out. I wanted sunlight and noise, and something that didn't hum with secrets. But halfway up, Abel stopped and turned to face me. "Don't leave the mop here," he said. "It's bound to you now. When the next awakening comes, you'll need it again." I stared at him. "I'm not coming back." He looked at me the way a priest looks at rain. "You always say that." The words landed wrong, heavy, familiar. I stepped into the hallway above the vault. Morning light filtered through stained glass, painting the stone in fractured color. Red like veins, blue like bruises, gold like promises no one keeps. The cathedral smelled different in daylight. Less holy, more human. The weight of night still clung to my clothes, thick as incense. Abel followed me out, squinting at the sun. "The blood remembers," he said quietly. "It doesn't forgive. It just waits." He pressed something into my hand, a small iron key, blackened with age. "If it calls again, you'll hear it in your sleep. Don't come running, but don't ignore it either." "Not much of a choice," I said. "Faith never is." He turned and walked back toward the stairwell, robe whispering over the floor. Each step sounded like a page turning. I stood there a while. The mop leaned against the nearest pew, clean, silent, pretending to be normal, but in the reflection of the stained glass, its handle pulsed once, faint, golden like it was breathing. I should have left it there. I should have thrown it in the river and forgotten the whole thing. Instead, I picked it up. It felt lighter now, like the weight it carried wasn't gone, just waiting for the next shift. When I pushed open the cathedral's front doors, the cold air slapped me awake. The city was still asleep, streets washed in pre-dawn gray. A flock of pigeons took off from the bell tower. Their wings made a sound too rhythmic to be random, almost like chanting. I told myself I imagined it. Halfway to my truck, I saw it. A streak of red on the sidewalk. Not paint, not fresh. More like something had seeped up through the cracks overnight. Blood dried in veins between the stones, and under it, faint and carved deep, were the same 3 rules from the vault. Never step beyond the red line. Don't answer the chanting. If your shadow moves, pray someone had written something new beneath them, smaller and in a hand I recognized. Mine. Shift never ends. I froze. The sun broke over the horizon, and for a split second my shadow stretched long across the street, longer than it should have. It bent at the knees like it was standing up straight while I was still slouching. Then it turned its head. Not all the way. Just enough to notice me noticing. I took a step back. The mop handle twitched once in my grip, like a guard dog smelling smoke. The bristles brightened in warning. The shadow smiled. The reflection on a shop window beside me rippled, and for an instant I saw the vault again, the red line glowing, the heart pulsing beneath glass that wasn't there anymore, and standing in the center, watching me through that impossible reflection, was Brother Abel. His eyes were red as coals. He mouthed something, one word. Again. The window cracked. The sound came from beneath the street, deep as thunder. I tightened my hold on the mop. "Not this time," I whispered. The reflection shuddered. The red line flickered. My shadow straightened, mirroring me perfectly again. Calm, obedient. But the chant was back soft. Slow. Coming from the storm drains this time. I walked to my truck, started the engine, and watched the cathedral in the rearview mirror. Its spire caught the morning light like a blade, and for just a heartbeat, I swore I saw the entire building exhale. One long, silent breath of crimson fog. I drove away anyway. And behind me, the church bells rang again. Not in 3s, not for prayer. They rang 13 times. A countdown. Final log entry. 5:19 a.m. If you're reading this, don't take the night watch job at St. Rigor Mortis Cathedral. The blood doesn't need guards, it needs company, and it never forgets a good janitor. A single line of cleaner's tape is smeared across the bottom of the page, glowing faintly. Initials burned into it, MP.